Have you ever felt as if the universe is laughing at your audacity? That the very instant you dropped your guard and chose to truly love, it threw an impossible obstacle in your path? Carl Jung didn't believe in coincidence, and neither should you. Because if you've met someone who has stirred your soul so profoundly, yet that person is already committed to another, it's not misfortune, it's destiny. And perhaps, though you may not realize it yet, it's the most sacred moment of your life. What do you do when love arrives at the wrong time? When your heart recognizes someone before your mind grasps what's happening? You're living your ordinary life, expecting nothing special, and then suddenly, your eyes meet. It happens swiftly, almost imperceptibly, but your entire being responds. Goosebumps rise, an inner stillness descends, as if all the answers you've never received are focused in a single glance. But then comes the jolt. She's married. He has children. They already have a history, a commitment, vows, and obligations. And you find yourself in the midst of cosmic irony. The truest love of your life appears and already belongs to someone else. How do you endure such a reality? How do you move forward when what matters most to you is precisely what you can't have? This is where most people crumble. They blame fate, curse timing, doubt love itself. But Jung wouldn't see this as a tragedy. He'd see it as a beginning. Because when life offers you what you crave with every fiber of your being, yet cannot attain, it shows you, without filters, who you truly are. It reveals what you value, how far you've matured, and what still needs healing within you. What if the point isn't to be together right now? What if this encounter is a mirror, a catalyst, an invitation to something that transcends physical presence? Jung believed that some people enter our lives not to stay, but to awaken us, to reveal a forgotten fragment of our soul. Perhaps your soul was quietly calling you to this remembrance. Maybe the pain you're experiencing now is actually a reminder that, for the first time in a long time, you're truly alive. After all, why do you feel so deeply for someone you barely know? Why is this connection so immediate, so visceral, so beyond your control? Jung would explain it as a manifestation of the anima or animus, the inner image of the feminine or masculine principle residing in our unconscious. And when we meet someone who perfectly reflects that image, something sacred happens. It's not infatuation, it's reunification. And if it's reunification, then perhaps you've loved each other before, in other lives, in other circumstances, in places your mind doesn't remember, but your heart never forgot. And that's why it hurts so much, because it's not just a new love being born, it's an old connection being awakened. But is this your love to have, right now? A significant trap many fall into when experiencing something like this is believing they must fight for this love at all costs, that they must extract the other person from their current relationship. But true love, according to Jung, doesn't seek possession, it seeks transformation. And if you try to rush the process, if you act out of desperation, you risk destroying what was meant to set you free. The question isn't, how can I make her leave him? The question is, how can I become worthy of this love, even if it never materializes? And that question changes everything, because it lifts you out of the victim's position and places you at the center of your own developmental process. It invites you to grow and heal, to become whole, regardless of what the other person chooses. You're experiencing something few have the courage to face, a love that transcends the possible, and that requires extraordinary strength. Because loving someone who loves you back is easy, but to love someone you can't have, and yet choose to respect, protect, and honor that feeling, that's transcendence. Perhaps you're together on another level, while here, in the world of forms, you walk on opposite sides of an invisible, yet heavy as stone wall. Perhaps she feels it too. Perhaps he also awakens with a longing for something he can't quite understand. And yet, each continues on their path because now isn't the time, because there are still lessons to learn in other directions, because there are promises to keep, and that too is part of the soul's journey. Jung would say that when something touches us so deeply, it's because it carries a symbolic function, to trigger transformation. Yes, you've been touched, perhaps wounded, but you've also awakened. And this person who came touched your heart and then remained behind a closed door. He didn't come to imprison you further. He came to liberate you from illusions, from inadequacies, from childish desires, from patterns you've repeated for years. She came to show you mature love, one that accepts, respects, trusts, one that remains, even if it can't physically stay. But what if you're deluding yourself? What if it's all in your head? That thought torments you when everything around you is quiet, when there are no messages, no signs, no confirmations. But here's the painful and liberating truth. What's real doesn't need validation. What's genuine doesn't vanish with the absence of a response. What touches the soul leaves traces that even time cannot erase. And what if she ends the relationship? What if he realizes you're not the one? Will you wait or move on? Will you close yourself off or open your heart to a new story? Will you trust or surrender? There are no definitive answers to these questions, because each path is unique. And what Jung would teach us here is that the most important thing isn't what you do, but who you become while living through this. The pain is real, the longing is legitimate, the absence hurts, but something deeper is happening. And if you have the courage to stay with that pain, not run from it, to listen to what it wants to teach you, you'll become someone no other relationship could ever have made you. You will grow, drawing closer to your true self. This story, which seems like a trick of fate, may actually be a gateway to your spiritual transformation. Carl Jung wouldn't talk about a happy ending. He'd talk about meaning, about purpose, about individuation. He'd remind you that the goal of life isn't to be happy all the time, but to be whole. And sometimes, being whole hurts, but after the pain comes the light. And if you've reached this place, if your heart has trembled at some part of this truth, then perhaps you've found the answer you've been seeking for so long. It's not about getting the love you want. It's about becoming worthy of the love your soul came to experience. In the following sections, you'll understand why the universe doesn't make mistakes, and why finding your soulmate in an already committed relationship can become the most healing and revelatory experience of your life. Have you ever noticed that the most significant encounters in your life are almost never planned? They just happen, as if an invisible force is orchestrating the details behind the scenes of existence. And sometimes, this meeting is accompanied by a silent warning. This will change everything. The problem is, these changes don't always occur as we'd like them to. Sometimes they come disguised as the impossible. You've met someone. It wasn't like other times. It wasn't mere physical attraction or a fleeting infatuation. It was like looking into the eyes of a person and feeling that your soul had been recognized, even before any words were spoken. But there was a catch, a nuance that transformed everything into torment. This person already had a life, a marriage, a family, a story that began before your arrival, and you try to live your life, but something inside you screams. An old memory, it seems, has been awakened. A profound desire not only to be with this person, but to find yourself through them, as if they touched something that had been dormant within you for decades, something you didn't even know still existed. Carl Jung called this an archetypal projection. When we meet someone who embodies our animus or anima, the inner image of the ideal masculine or feminine principle that dwells in our unconscious, it's as if a part of us is finally coming to light. But Jung cautioned that these projections aren't simple. They can awaken us, but they can also confuse us, because what we see in the other is often what we've forgotten to develop in ourselves. Perhaps you, who are experiencing this dilemma today, have spent years in cold, functional relationships, based on logic, convenience, or the expectations of others. Perhaps you've been a present father, a responsible husband, a tireless wife, a mother who gave her all. And now, in your 40s, 50s, or 60s, something unexpected turns you inside out. How can such an overwhelming feeling arise so late in life? How can a heart, weary from so many disappointments, still beat like this? But Jung wouldn't see this as a midlife crisis. He'd see it as a belated call from the soul, an invitation to live not by social rules, but by an inner truth. He spoke of individuation, the process of becoming who we truly are. And that process is rarely comfortable. It requires us to confront all that we cease to be in order to fit in. And here comes the harsh truth that almost no one wants to accept. Your soulmate didn't come to complete you. They came to remind you that you were never whole to begin with. They came to ignite your lack, to show you with both cruelty and beauty where your cracks are. Yes, they may even love you, but even that love may not be enough to break the commitment they've already made. And it is here that both suffering and the chance for growth are born. How many times in the past months have you caught yourself replaying conversations, interpreting glances and hunting for signs? How many sleepless nights have you spent, wondering why the universe is so cruel as to give you such a deep, yet unattainable love? But Jung would say that life isn't trying to punish you, it's trying to heal you. Most of us seek love to feel less alone, but true love, the love that the soul recognizes, has a different purpose: to make us more whole, more authentic, more aligned with who we came here to be. And for that, it needs friction, it needs absence, it needs doubt. Perhaps she's the most radiant woman you've ever met. Perhaps he's the man who made you feel alive after years of emotional silence. And yet, you can't have him. Not now. Perhaps never. And then you need to decide whether to use this pain as an excuse for self-destruction or as fuel for reconstruction. It's easy to idealize the other person when love is impossible. You only see what captivates you, ignoring the shadows. But Jung said that true integration occurs when we can see the other in their entirety, with light and shadow, and still love them. Moreover, when we can see ourselves in the same way. You're not being called to lure someone out of a marriage. You're being called to find within yourself the courage to live a complete life. This encounter that shook you isn't an invitation to escape. It's a mirror. And what you see in that mirror is who you still have the potential to become. Many people, when faced with this kind of love, retreat. They shut down, blame themselves, feel immoral or foolish. But what you're experiencing is a profound phenomenon, a call of the soul that few have the courage to confront. Because it's not just about romantic love, it's about transcendence. And if you can't live out this love in the traditional sense, then in what other form can it manifest? In friendship, inspiration, inner transformation? Because true love doesn't necessarily have to happen on the physical plane to leave a mark. It's a bridge between the visible and the invisible, between who you were and who you still can become. Think about your life so far. How many moments have you lived in automatic mode? How many times have you silenced your soul to avoid conflict, to maintain appearances, to not disrupt the system? This impossible love, however painful, may be the only thing capable of breaking that anesthesia. And that's a gift. But gifts of the soul almost always come wrapped in pain, because it knows that only in that way will you open them. And opening is the first step towards change. Jung knew that some experiences have no rational explanation. They can only be lived, felt, cried over, written about, pondered, and finally understood from within. Perhaps you still hope she'll send you a message, that he'll say he's decided to leave. Perhaps you still dream of a life together. But what if life wants to give you something more? What if behind this absence lies the key to your true emotional freedom? What if this waiting isn't about another person but about you? Have you ever imagined what your life would look like if today you began to dedicate as much love and attention to yourself as you dedicate to the other person? Have you ever taken 5 minutes a day to quiet your mind and listen to what your soul truly needs? That's why the Jung method Low Day exists. 5 minutes a day for inner peace and clarity of mind. It's not a magic formula. It's a space to meet yourself, a safe place where you can gradually begin to reconnect with what's truly important. Because sometimes, before experiencing great love, we need to relearn how to live within ourselves. You'll find the link to access this ebook in the pinned comment of this video. If your heart has felt that this message is for you, perhaps it's already time to begin this reunification. And what if everything you're experiencing is neither a coincidence nor a punishment, but a highly specific call from your destiny? And what if this person you can't have, but also can't forget, is the hidden key to a transformation that only impossible love can initiate? Carl Jung warned us that what we need most is located where we least want to look. And perhaps that's what's happening right now. Because however painful it may be, you can't escape this feeling. No matter how much you try to rationalize, distract yourself, or forget, it returns in dreams, in random songs, in the silence that suddenly takes on a face and a name. As if life has decided to leave this mark on your skin, even without touching you. But have you ever wondered why this love has such power over you? The answer may be where few dare to look, in your own shadow. Yes, perhaps this passion arose not only to show you the beauty of what could have been, but also all that you haven't yet accepted in yourself. Old fears, forgotten desires, rejected parts. Every great passion that comes with such an almost mystical force carries within it, along with the light, a theme you must be willing to confront. And perhaps this is your real spiritual work right now. Perhaps the reason this feeling so stubbornly refuses to let you go has nothing to do with the other person, but is related to what they awaken in you. Perhaps they embody what you never dared to be. Perhaps they represent a way of life that you've suppressed within yourself for decades. Perhaps this love isn't an invitation to another person, but a call to finally save yourself. When Jung spoke of projection, he wasn't simply describing a cold psychological process. He was revealing how the unconscious creates bridges, leading us to forgotten parts of our soul. And these bridges aren't always comfortable. In fact, they almost always confront us with reality. That's why impossible love is so intense, because it forces you to look honestly at yourself. Can you identify which part of you is being projected onto this person? She's free and spontaneous. He's firm, self-assured, and knows exactly what he wants from life. She embodies the gentleness you've suppressed. He awakens a spirituality you've abandoned. Behind every connection that defies logic, there's always a symbolic meaning. The question is, are you willing to uncover it? Share with us in the comments what this person awakens in you that no one else does. Don't be afraid to answer. Sometimes writing what hurts is already the first step towards liberation. Another deep and rarely discussed aspect is what Jung called the transcendent function. It's a kind of inner tension that arises when two truths coexist without negating each other. You love someone, but you can't be with them. You feel something real, but you can't act according to it. You recognize destiny, but you must submit to timing. This tension, according to Jung, shouldn't be hastily resolved. It needs to be maintained, felt. It's in that tension that transformation occurs. It's that paradox that gives birth to a third element, something beyond the duality of having and not having, a new state of consciousness, a new form of love, a new version of yourself. How many times in recent weeks have you thought, this makes no sense. If we're not meant to be together, why is this happening? But what if life isn't asking you to understand, but simply to surrender? Surrender not in the sense of giving up, but in the sense of ceasing to resist, ceasing to fight what you feel, ceasing to try to fit extraordinary love into ordinary frameworks, ceasing to try to turn a spiritual connection into a traditional relationship just to feel safe. Sometimes love must be more than a form. Have you ever considered that this person may never be with you, and yet their presence has already healed you on some level? How many habits have you dropped since they appeared? How many inner truths have begun to surface? How many feelings have awakened after years of slumber? Don't underestimate the power of a subtle encounter. One glance can trigger more change than a lifetime with the wrong person. What if this love came not to be lived, but to be understood? This is one of Jung's most unsettling ideas. Not every love must be lived in order to fulfill its function. Some kinds of love come to teach, to awaken, to purify, so that you never again agree to live a half-life, so that you discover a capacity for love within yourself that you didn't suspect. And here's a bold proposition. Would you be willing to give thanks for this love, even if it never materializes? It's not an easy question. It challenges self-esteem, challenges the need for affection, challenges illusions, but it heals the soul, because only those who can give thanks for what they don't have are truly ready to receive what is authentic. Write in the comments if you've ever experienced a love that changed you, even without being fulfilled. Let's transform this space into a field of collective healing, because many hearts are going through this in silence right now. Another powerful thought that Jung offers us concerns the role of obstacles. The ordinary mind sees obstacles as barriers to overcome, but the deep mind sees them as structural elements of the path. What if the fact that this person is married, bound by commitments, unavailable, is precisely what's making you grow? Perhaps, if you had been free from the beginning, everything would have been banal, flat. Perhaps this love became sacred only because you were forced to hone it with patience, silence, and pain. Because you couldn't just take, you could only contemplate, and contemplation is sometimes the purest manifestation of love. Have you ever considered that? This absence that gnaws at you today may be what's making you into something far more beautiful than any ideal romance. Because the pain you're experiencing today is expanding your capacity to feel, and those who feel deeply, live intensely, love genuinely, and connect with what doesn't die. You're not living an ordinary life, and therefore, you can't expect ordinary solutions. The answer to this love isn't found in ready-made advice. It's found in quietly listening to what it wants to tell you. It's found in respecting every emotion it has awakened. It's found in having the courage not to run from what scares you and not to chase after what promises quick relief. You have a rare opportunity to learn to love consciously, with presence, with self-giving, without guarantees of reciprocity, without the need for possession. Such love isn't for everyone. It requires a mature soul, an awakened heart, and a faith that no cynic has learned. So, take a deep breath, look within, allow yourself to feel, and know that the very fact that you're here seeking meaning already places you on a different level of consciousness. You're being shaped by something great, and that is sacred. Did you know that more than 60% of people experiencing impossible love describe the feeling as something spiritual, not just emotional? That even in silence and without visible reciprocity, this love becomes a turning point, a kind of invisible initiation that rearranges priorities, shatters certainties, and sows doubts that seem endless. And perhaps you're experiencing exactly that right now. You wake up every day with the same name echoing in your chest, even while trying to forget it, trying to live your normal life, but carrying a sacred secret, a pain that almost no one understands, because it has no logic, no happy ending that would justify its weight, but it's still there, like a constant, quiet and transforming presence. Carl Jung said that the soul doesn't care about happiness, it cares about wholeness, and therefore it leads us down paths that make no sense to the mind, but are necessary for the maturation of the essence. Sometimes, the love we can't live out on the physical plane is the only thing that can bring us back inward. Imagine, for example, a 70-year-old woman. We'll call her Elena. She's lived through 2 marriages, raised children, built a solid career, and never considered herself romantic. She was practical, realistic, until she met a colleague recently transferred to her department. One meeting, one glance, was enough, and the absurd feeling that she had known him all her life. The detail: he was married, had young children, and to top it off, seemed to feel the same way. Eleanor never touched him. She never said an extra word, but they both knew that something subtle and enormous was happening. And instead of fighting it, she did something unusual. She accepted the pain and used this impossible love as a mirror. In 6 months, she changed her diet, started drawing again, quit her job, and moved to live by the sea, something she had dreamed of for years, but had never dared to do. What drove her? An impossible feeling that finally made her listen to her soul. That's where the hidden power of love that can't be fulfilled lies. It brings you back to what matters most. How many times have you ignored the clear signs that your life is empty? How many times have you silenced your inner voice to maintain stability? Impossible love doesn't come to fill your life with a new person. It comes to show you how far you've been from yourself. Jung observed that in ancient myths, great transformations always occurred after difficult encounters. Heroes get lost in the forest. Villains demand sacrifices. Princes are separated from princesses with supernatural powers. These are eternal symbols of what we all still experience. Only the door to the sacred is different. A study conducted by the University of Chicago showed that 43% of the participants who reported experiencing great unrequited love claimed that after the initial shock, the feeling triggered one of the periods of greatest emotional and spiritual growth in their lives. They changed careers, resumed studies, resolved old traumas, started therapy, or for the first time discovered a spirituality that had previously seemed unattainable to them. Now tell me, how can unrealized love have such an effect? Perhaps because it awakens within us what was already ready to manifest, like a spark that rekindles ancient memories, an ancient desire for expansion, and therefore, even without touch, without promises, without continuation, it remains, because its function wasn't to create a couple, it was to shape a new consciousness. And that's where statistics fail, because they can't measure the invisible. They don't know what happens to the soul that loves for the first time without being able to possess, that respects without invading, that cries without seeking revenge, that feels without demanding. Jung called this conscious love, love that isn't governed by the ego, but arises from a connection to something greater, perhaps even higher than the union itself. Perhaps because it is still teaching you. Perhaps it is still purifying the emotional soil on which one day you will be able to experience something purer, deeper, truer. or perhaps because this connection doesn't belong only to this life. Jung spoke of synchronicity as an invisible mechanism of the soul, two seemingly unrelated things that happen simultaneously and make sense to those who are attentive. Have you ever had dreams about this person on days when you were thinking about them especially intensely? Have you ever felt an inexplicable presence when you were about to make an important decision? Have you noticed that he or she appears in your thoughts with greater force in moments when you distance yourself from yourself? That's not madness. It's the soul trying to communicate. Perhaps that's why so many people experience this and never talk about it, because it seems too absurd, too intense, too irrational. But it is precisely because it is irrational that it touches places that the mind will never reach. The soul doesn't use arguments, it uses symbols, and this person may be the symbol it has chosen to awaken you. It's no coincidence that you are here reading and feeling all this. Another interesting fact: in ancient cultures, such as the Navajo or Australian Aborigines, unlived love was considered one of the most sacred things. They believed that by renouncing a true love and respecting the natural order, and out of loyalty to more important obligations, the soul ascends to a new level of consciousness. Suffering was recognized as part of the path to wisdom. It was revered, never mocked. How many of us today treat our feelings with such reverence? Can you see the beauty in the pain you are experiencing now? Not in the sense of glorifying suffering, but in recognizing that it is opening up a new space within you, a space that perhaps would never have been touched if this love had been simple, easy, resolved. Impossible love digs deep, and therefore, it unearths treasures that were buried beneath layers of routine, protection, and fear. Perhaps you are undergoing training, quiet, painful, to live in a new way, more freely, more consciously, more compassionately. And in this training, pain is part of the plan, because it is precisely what makes you stop, look, rethink, and feel. Ordinary love soothes, impossible love transforms. And make no mistake, the universe doesn't play dice. As Jung said, what doesn't come to consciousness comes as fate. You are not tied to this love by chance. It is leading you to a turning point, to a choice. Will you close yourself off to love, or will you open yourself to a new form of life? If you feel that this message is addressed to you, share in the comments what lesson this impossible love is forcing you to learn. It may seem simple, but when you write, you anchor your thoughts, you give shape to the invisible, and you help other hearts feel less alone. There is no guide for what you are experiencing, but there are paths, and one of them is to stop seeking answers outside and start listening to what your soul has been whispering to you for a long time, because deep down, it already knows. This love isn't a mistake, it's a call, and it is leading you precisely where you need to be, even if you don't yet understand the map. You have come to this by going through a path that isn't only linked to love, it's linked to revelation, to remembering who you are, even when everything around you seems contradictory. This feeling that stubbornly remains, even without reciprocity, without a clear future, even without guarantees, it hasn't come to destroy you. It has come to rebuild you on new foundations. But what to do with all this that overwhelms you? When love can't be lived the way you would like, it has to find another way to exist, or it will suffocate you. Because the problem isn't loving. The problem is not having anywhere to put that love. And that's what Jung teaches us. That love, when it is conscious, can turn into creative energy. It can become healing, art, wisdom, service, but only if you allow it to move. And so, now is the moment of change. Until now, you may have been looking for explanations, trying to understand why this happened, why with you, why now. But what if the question is no longer why, but what will I do with this? Impossible love is a radical call to emotional maturity. And perhaps that's why so few people are willing to live it constructively, because it doesn't give you certainties. It gives you mirrors. It doesn't offer you comfort. It forces you to grow. You become responsible for managing an intense feeling without placing that burden on the other person. That's where many stories are lost, in the desperate attempt to turn a spiritual connection into an earthly plot, forcing encounters, creating situations, breaking ties, wanting at all costs for the other to confirm your feelings. But Jung would say that it is precisely at that moment that the soul retreats, because it knows that what is sacred cannot be manipulated. The power of this love lies precisely in the fact that it doesn't fit into ordinary frameworks, and therefore it demands from you a new type of behavior, a new type of thinking, a new attitude towards life. You can continue to resist. You can continue to hope that one day she will leave, that he will understand that you are the one, that fate will work a miracle and untangle all the knots. But what if that miracle isn't external, but internal? Perhaps the real miracle is that you can love without being attached, feel without demanding, care without losing yourself, desire without losing your own dignity. Is this possible? Jung believed so, but not through denying feelings, but through integrating them. What does this mean in practice? That you need to allow yourself to live out this love within yourself, without needing it from the outside. That you need to stop seeing the other as salvation, and start seeing them as a symbol, an archetype, a messenger. He or she represents what you need to awaken, perhaps freedom, perhaps courage, perhaps self-worth, or even a spirituality that you have abandoned. What if, instead of chasing this person, you started cultivating within yourself what they symbolize? That's when the story changes. Because when you stop looking outside and start awakening inside, life responds to you, not with empty promises, but with subtle signs, with harmony, with a peace that begins to be born quietly, even when nothing has changed on the outside. It's a peace that only those who have truly loved without attachment know, and if you are on this path, know that you are among the few who have chosen to grow, not to blame, to integrate, not to break, to love, not to demand. You are clearing a generation of recurring emotional patterns. You are choosing consciousness where before there was only scarcity. You are transcending yourself. But the question that has been echoing since the beginning remains. Is there a real chance that this love will come true? And the honest answer is yes, but only in soul time, not ego time. Jung said that synchronicities cannot be forced. They happen when the conscious and unconscious are in harmony, when you become capable of maintaining the energy of what you want. So, if this love is truly meant to happen, it will come, not when you are begging, but when you are ready not to receive it, but to no longer need it as an emotional crutch. It's hard to accept, but it frees you, because it takes you out of passive expectation and puts you at the helm of what truly matters, your own process of individuation, your reunion with who you came here to be. And when you become whole, life begins to give you whole relationships, with that person or with another, but with the same depth, presence, and truthfulness that you have discovered for yourself now. It's curious, but many stories of people who have experienced impossible love and haven't sunk into depression, but have grown thanks to it, show that at some point, life brought them a new connection, even richer, even more compatible, even more present. And do you know what all these stories have in common? Surrendering to themselves. The moment when these people stopped fighting what was, stopped trying to change the other, and began to care for themselves with the same love that they felt for the one they couldn't have. Are you ready for that moment? Then here's your challenge. Turn this feeling into movement, into creativity, into conscious choices, into growth. Everything you have experienced so far has led you to this moment. But from this moment on, what you do with this love will determine what kind of person you become. Be the one who loves, even when it's not easy, who feels, even when it hurts, who respects, even when the heart asks for the opposite, who values the invisible, even when everything tells you to give up. And if you want to know how to do this specifically, step by step, applying this knowledge in your life in the way that your soul demands, then get ready, because now you will receive a map, a personal, deep, and practical plan that can completely transform how you live, feel, and build relationships. The love you are experiencing may never leave. It may even change shape, turn into silence, into longing, into sweet memories, but it probably won't disappear completely. There are certain feelings that don't disappear. They simply reorganize themselves within us. What changes, and must change, is what you do with that feeling, because it's time to stop suffering the pain and start living the transformation it has brought. You already understood that this meeting wasn't a mistake, that it came to show you a part of yourself that was forgotten, that it was the mirror that your soul needed. But now it's more than understanding. It's time to act. Because life doesn't change when you understand something. It changes when you embrace it. And that's the commitment that I propose to you now. A real, deep, and applicable plan that turns impossible love into emotional maturity, spiritual strength, and inner freedom. A plan for those who feel that they have already understood with their minds, but still suffer with their hearts. First, accept the feeling without judgment. The first step is not to get rid of your feelings, but to accept them. Allow yourself to feel, name them, respect them. This means stopping blaming yourself for loving someone who is already committed, stopping feeling wrong, crazy, or naive. The feelings that were born in you don't depend on your choices. What you do with them does depend on you. Every day, set aside some time to acknowledge what lives inside you. Take a deep breath. Say aloud, "I feel this, and it's okay." That's courage. That's presence. That's accepting your soul. 2. Write letters that will never be sent. This is a deep and liberating therapeutic practice. Write to this person everything you feel with brutal honesty. Empty your heart. Then, if you want, write as if it were he or she answering you. Put yourself in their place. This helps to integrate not only the pain, but also the clarity. You begin to hear the other side. And more than that, you begin to hear what's hidden within you. Write until the words begin to come from the heart, not from anxiety. Write until the silence begins to seem less heavy. Write until you feel you are saying something to yourself. 3. Turn absence into presence. All the time you spend thinking about the other person, dedicate to yourself. All the care, affection, and attention, redirect it to yourself. Because the love you feel, even if it seems external, belongs to you. And it can be used to strengthen yourself, not to empty yourself. Create small rituals, a longer shower, a walk without distractions, a quiet meal. Treat yourself the way you would treat someone you love deeply. You'll be surprised how much you can get from life when you stop asking for emotional crumbs from someone who can't give you everything. 4. Focus on growth, not on solutions. You are not living this story for it to end, and they lived happily ever after. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But that's not the point. The point is what you become in the process. Impossible love is a gym for the soul. It's where you strengthen the emotional muscles that were previously atrophied. Patience, compassion, detachment, presence. Ask yourself every day, how can I grow based on what I feel? And act according to the answer. 5. Rediscover your mission and your talents. Many forget this, but Jung spoke a lot about the influence of important encounters on the awakening of vocation. Emotional pain opens spiritual sensitivity. This is the perfect moment to redirect your creative energy. Go back to drawing, start writing, teaching, creating, sharing. The question is no longer, how can I get this person? The question is, how can I live such a fulfilling life that, even without him, it will still make sense? Use the love you feel as fuel. You are stronger than you think.